Got a mic check. Hey, Alec, how you doing, man?
Test, test, test.
All right, sounds good. Check, check. There we go. Looks like I can speak without having to shout, so do I sound good through there? I'm just talking normally. I've unfortunately lost my voice, so this is all you got. Yeah. Let me get that numb tone. Less is more. Okay, so how about right here? All right, so our first driver for qualifying. We're about to start qualifying here for round 4 here at USDrift Circuit in Sebring. Round 4 is the last round, so this is for all the marbles. This is where we'll give out 3 ProAM or Pro 2 licenses for Formula Drift. This is a chance that Brandon McDowell can kind of redeem himself too. He unfortunately was knocked out in the top 16 with a big bobble on entry. So this is his redemption as we start this next round. He's warming up his tires there at the entry, and then we'll be seeing him navigate this new course that we have. Alec, why don't you talk us through this course real quick? Where are the outer zones? Where does he need to put his car?
All right, I believe we just went live while you were saying some of that stuff. So if you're just now joining us, we are here at Sebring National Raceway. This is the final. This is the championship. And today, let's talk about the course. Like you were mentioning, this is my favorite layout here at Sebring. Yesterday, we got to we're on the whole opposite side of the track. And today, this is a very fast, hot entry. And we're about to send the first qualifier. So let's go ahead and pay attention to the track as Brandon McDowell is going to give us our first qualifying run.
Brandon McDowell from Orlando, Florida, originally from Louisiana, but driving that red 350Z, sponsored by Njuka Racing. Good initiation, lots of smoke, lots of throttle commitment. Basically waiting for the car to naturally transition into outer zone 2. Now as he navigates the tighter portions of the track, it's a little bit of a decel zone before the touch and go, but swinging out wide, finishing in and filling in that outer zone for a solid first run. Excellent run. What do you think, Alec?
That was an absolutely awesome way to start this qualifying session. I think that was a great demonstration of what we're looking for, and I believe that's going to please the judges quite a bit. He used every single bit of the track. We were talking about that earlier before we went live, is that we want to see the drivers using all of the track, staying wide, and he did it, and he came in with a lot of speed. It looked spectacular. I'd love to see that all day. Yeah,
I really hope that we can see more of those runs as we head through the field. Looks like we might have another top 16 for tonight's field, but there are a few people that were knocked out due to technicalities, just not able to put on points yesterday. So hopefully we'll have a little bit more than 16 today and see some top 32 battles as well.
Yeah, we saw a lot of things shaken up yesterday, mainly in part by the weather conditions, and as a result, there's a lot of differences in our point standings. We'll be able to get more in depth into a breakdown later, especially as his qualifying runs really shape up. But leaving yesterday, we know that our top 3 has changed up. Jaden has now stepped in the top 3. Lee Earwood is still in top 3, and Brandon McDowell is still carrying number 1 with a pretty decent lead. But after first place, there's not a lot of points separating everyone else in the grid. So how today goes still means that it could be just about anybody's game to collect these Pro 2 licenses that are on the table.
Technically, it can go down to top 10, can still win their license today. But that's only if like everyone else in front of them doesn't even make it into qualifying. So
yeah, and anything can happen. And right now we finally have our first qualifying score, an 85 with Brandon McDowell. That is a strong score. That looks like it's most likely not going to allow him to have to do another knockout lap. And 85 is going to be a great score for these other drivers to shoot for. And he might be sitting on a throne protecting that one for a while in the qualifying session.
So we're doing another knockout qualifying, so only the bottom 6 will have to do a second qualifying run, similar to how we did it yesterday.
Yeah, and that's going to be a great opportunity for those drivers. I love the structure because it means that not only are you going to be able to have another opportunity, but you could still end up anywhere in that qualifying grid. So for those drivers that get a second chance at redemption, they're going to be very happy.
All right, looks like the next driver to do their first qualifying run is Jaden Martorana. Jaden coming in second place yesterday, really thrusting himself up into the top 3 now, has an opportunity to be one of the youngest FD drivers. That's a pretty cool opportunity.
Yeah, that's a huge opportunity right now. I think the title is held by Brandon Sorensen as being the one of the youngest. And at 14 years old, He's still got so much time for development, but it's very clear that he's made a lot of development already. He's always been someone that's really nice and cheerful to run into in the pits. His mindset's in the right place, and he's coming off of a great performance yesterday. So I'd like to just see that continuation today, because right now he's sitting in third, so he's got a really good chance. He just needs to perform today.
So let's see what Jaden can do out on track, filling in that first outer zone, transitioning with a little bit of throttle to fill in the rear zone, grabbing a quick e-brake to hit that touch and go. Now as he needs to get that car transition quickly to fill in the last outer zone. Throwing down a little throttle, putting up a little smoke. Good run by Jaden Martirana.
All right, making a smoke show out there. Jaden did a great job on that qualifying run. I'm sure all these drivers are very thankful for the dry conditions today. We're really getting to see what the potential is for the performance of these cars that these competitors brought out today. And so very curious to know what that was going to be. That looked clean enough that maybe I'm not so sure about what I said. We saw Brandon McDowell with an 85, and we saw a lot of drivers doing really well in practice. So I'm really interested to see where that kind of mid-score is going to be, that a meet of the drivers is going to be scoring today.
Yeah, a couple mistakes here and there as far as where he put down the throttle, put down the power. But we'll have to see what the judges come up with. 72 from our judges, 72 for Jaden Martirana. Not a bad score. A lot lower than about 13 points lower than Brandon McDowell. So we'll see where the rest of the field lines up.
Yeah, and that's still an absolutely decent score. I mean, obviously because of the weather conditions, we didn't get as great qualifying laps yesterday, but we did see a lot of 60s on grid yesterday. We saw a lot of people that were hovering below 70. It almost seemed like people were within individual points of each other. So, 72 could be a great score, could be a lower score. We are really going to have to wait to find out.
But plenty of opportunities for these drivers to seed themselves in a good spot. Next up, it looks like we have Lee Yearwood from Melbourne, Florida. RB30 powered 240SX. Saw a tragic exit out of the Grade 8 yesterday. A little bit of a controversial exit as well as far as whether or not the lead driver understeered. It looks like the judges were at least able to settle that protest and get a little bit of more clarification. Now, as we head into to qualifying, Lee Yearwood needs to prove the judges that he can still get and earn that Pro 2 license by throwing down a really good run here.
Yeah, and one of the things that we got to hear from that driver was kind of like, the anticipation of if you see a mistake, kind of backing off a little bit. And I never recommend for any driver to do that. Never leave it in the judges' hands. I said that yesterday, and that's always going to be prominent. It's not over till it's over. If a car is still driving, whether you see a mistake or not, drive the wheels off your car, drive as aggressive as you can, and try to make as little mistakes as possible, because you don't want the judges having to pick apart little nuances in order to pick a winner. You want the winner to be clear as day, and you don't ever want to assume that at any point that that anything means that the run is final when you haven't crossed the finish line yet. So I'd like to see full commitment from every driver today. Send it until you are all the way across the finish line, no matter what happens throughout the run, and hopefully it'll pay out in their favor.
That's exactly what the judges were saying in the drivers' meeting today, is just send it, full commitment, confidence, fluidity. Some of those important aspects will really help the drivers get a really good run and a really good score here in qualifying.
And we know for this run, for this track, there's not a lot of great viewing opportunity for the spectators, but we do have a Jumbotron out there, so if you're at the track, maybe want to set out a camping chair, we're going to do our best to be able to have a great stream for you today. Yesterday, we were able to get replays added, the bracket added, so especially as we move into competition, being able to utilize that Jumbotron, it's going to be great, because there's a lot going on at entry, but there's a lot going on past that there's not a lot of viewing opportunity for. So we're very happy for our tech team to be able to provide things like that for us, make this stream something valuable.
Yearwood.
All right, here we go. We're now seeing Lee Yearwood with his first qualifying run. Let's see what he can make of this track. Doing a good job making it really wide on that entry. We're going to see how he does on this transition. Could have been a little bit more outside on that outer zone, but he's making his way out to that second outer zone. We're looking at a nice, clean transition. I like to see that throttle commitment through the corner. He's making a great amount of clouds throughout the track. So definitely can see that he's committed on the throttle. Maybe a little bit better positioning of the car could be worked on. But so far, I mean, that's a run. That's a clean run. And he's definitely knows the car. He's comfortable, and it's dry conditions, so he's going to be able to make the most of that chassis.
Yeah, great run by Lee Yearwood. Definitely throwing all the power of that RB30 down on the track, turning it into carbon dust and smoke. So I'm glad to see that Lee came out here ready to prove the judges that he deserves a high spot in that bracket.
Yeah, and of course, as you guys, if you haven't been with us this weekend yet, it's been a 2-day event. So to hear every car coming through here with a very smooth exhaust tone, know that there's no issue with any of the engine components. It's great to see because that means that these cars are reliable. Even if you see fenders torn off, I mean, those are all just battle scars. But ultimately, that sounds like a well-oiled machine. So he's got a great chassis underneath him. I'm excited to see what he's going to do today.
Yeah, let's see what the judges tabulate. We have our 3 judges, 1 line, 1 angle, 1 style judge. Kelsey Rowling, Chef Abbott, and Noel.
All right, so we're about to get a final score. And it looks like it's going to be a 67 for Lee Yearwood right now, putting him in 3rd place. He is only 3rd up to qualify so far. 67 was a little bit kind of like higher mid-range of the qualifying runs yesterday.
All right, so slightly off the first touch and go, slightly shallow through the second outer zone here, and little mistakes through the second half of the course kind of got some deductions. Looked great through our eyes, but the judges saw some of those issues as far as where the car was in relation to some of those outer zones.
Yeah, and it definitely seems like the theme of this weekend has just been to use as much of the track as possible, and this layout, especially today, is going to test every technique that you know about drifting because you need to carry a lot of momentum. You need to translate it to an outside zone at the very end of this long stretch of a transition.
Next up, we have Billy Mitchell. Billy Mitchell coming out here with an Alice-powered 350Z. Doing a nice job of filling in that outer zone. A little bit less throttle commitment, having to kind of clutch kick to get some power down before the touch and go. Now feathering the throttle through the tighter portion of the course and finishing strong is Billy Mitchell in the Alice-powered Billy Mitchell Racing 350Z.
Yeah, Billy Mitchell, another really reliable chassis out here today and a great driver. I definitely see a little bit of opportunity to work on his confidence in this course. It seems like there's a little bit of area where he could have been a little bit more aggressive on the throttle. But he did a good job at picking up a lot of speed through this first part of the course. It really feels like this is a momentum course. So whatever you set yourself up for in these first 2 corners is really going to determine the pace of the rest of the track. Coming off of any of these zones is going to make it much larger of a chore for you to clean up the rest of your act before you get to the finish line.
Yeah, absolutely. Billy Mitchell coming to us from Edgewater, Florida. Big shout out to some of his sponsors, Bill Mitchell Products, Tire Sacks, and of course, Billy Mitchell Racing.
All right, and as we wait for the judges to compile a score, again, this competition is brought to you by Link ECU, OCT Composites, Golden Grown, Shift Culture, and OMP Racing. Oh, as well as Street Tire. Sorry, I left one out there. I'm doing a better job of memorizing these.
No, you got it a lot better. I don't know who any of the sponsors are, so I'm relying on you.
No, we appreciate all the sponsors who have agreed to work with us and make this competition possible. This is the only Formula Drift Pro-Am licensing series, and we finally have a score. Looks like it's going to be a 71 for Billy Mitchell. That's going to make him our new 3rd place holder in qualifying points.
Next up, we're going to see Sasha Prospero coming out with the LS-powered S14. Got to appreciate Sasha coming out here with stock fenders, stock aero, just coming out here for a good time and putting the business down where it needs to be.
Yeah, Sasha Prospero, we got to see pretty much the theme of his driving style is that he installed the WiseFab, he read the user manual, he knows exactly what it's capable of, and he likes getting the most out of it every single run. It's been really happy to see. It's made some really visually exciting runs happen in front of us, but it also has created a challenge for a lot of the chase drivers. I think the name of the game is going to be whoever's up against Sasha needs to understand that when he gets the full lock, it's going to create a lot of room. It's going to make it look like you're lacking in proximity. So if you're chasing Sasha, you're going to need to surge, and you're going to need to close that gap as quick as possible because when he's hanging it all out, if you're not matching that angle, it's going to look like you're a mile behind him.
We did see him hang it all out during qualifying yesterday, almost crabbing with that WiseFab at full lock. So it's kind of crazy to see his qualifying run yesterday compared to what we'll see him go out here today, to where, you know, we have a dry track, we have lots of grippy conditions, half the track is on the surface that they race on for the 12 hours of Sebring. So it's going to be definitely a pretty big contrast between the conditions of yesterday and today.
Yeah, absolutely. We get to see what they're capable of, and we're about to see what Sasha's capable of as he runs up to the entry for his qualifying run. Here he comes, making great utilization of that first outside zone, carrying a decent amount of speed. We'll just see if he can make it connect to that next outer zone as he sends some cones absolutely flying. So far doing a good job of not leaving a whole ton of meat on the bone. And he's putting out a lot more of that grip, looking to put some clouds out on that back section and make his way cleanly across the finish line.
Finishing strong with using all that LS power under the hood of that S14. Really filled in that last outer zone quite nicely. A little bit of a weird throttle commitment. Seems like he just didn't quite find the right gear. He was off the rev limiter here on entry, so I don't know if the judges would rather see him maybe shift up and get a little bit more of a higher gear on that.
Yeah, what the drivers are going to have to feel out is that while they're coming through this very fast-paced part of the course in the first half, it's a completely different material. As they step onto the latter half of the course, they're now getting onto a much slipperier side of the track, and it's only going to get worse as more tire marbles and dust and debris get onto the track. So definitely getting a good idea of what they can ask from the car is going to be really important. A lot of them are able to play with that in practice. So far, I think he's translating a decent amount of that. And another thing to mention about this, too, what I like to see about the WiseFab kit is that coming into this really fast section into that next outer zone, he's doing a great job, and it also means that, you know, what's the textbook of exercising that track and versus what your driving style might allow you to do are two completely different levels. And from Sasha, he can basically crab walk that car backwards if he needs to, if he came in with enough speed. So, you know, speed is not really going to be an issue for him. He's not worried about it. I imagine that even if he came in way too hot, he'd know exactly how to wrap that around.
So we got a 76 for Sasha Prospero on his first qualifying run, 76 for Sasha Prospero, coming to us from Brazil.
Yeah, 76, a great score. I definitely agree with that one. That's going to put him as our currently second standing qualifier. So I'd like to see him hold on to that. But so far, that's still almost 10 points below our number one qualifier. Brandon McDowell is still putting down a strong 85. Doesn't seem yet to be contended. So we'll have to see as we get into qualifying if someone's going to look to jump into that slot, because there's a lot of points there up for grab in between those two top qualifiers.
That's true. Number one qualifier as it stands is Brandon McDowell with an 85. Eric Noguera in the red C6 Corvette is warming up his tires right now for his first qualifying run. Looks like we'll be able to see a couple Corvettes battle it out here later today as well. We have a total of 3 in the competition, Jaden being one, Eric being the other, and Lewis Lands, who was our winner last night for round 3. That pretty impressive kind of journey that he took, was able to put that Corvette from kind of a shaky qualifying run out onto the top step of the podium yesterday.
Yeah, we've definitely seen a huge shift and transformation of what the grid's looking like as we get closer to our top 8 and top 4, because there's a lot of Corvettes on grid, and last night we saw 2 of our top 3 podium positions being in the Corvette chassis. So really excited to see what our Corvette drivers are going to do today, and we know Eric knows what to do with his. So
statistically speaking, Corvette drivers do have a higher chance of doing well. Eric Noguera on track right now, looking pretty solid. Definitely seems like he's a lot more comfortable with that car in drier conditions. But unfortunately, just having an awkward transition and going a little bit too deep. Obviously, you can see the chalk getting brushed up by his rear tires. So the run was looking great up until the transition. Seemed like he just maybe missed the gear, missed his throttle point.
Yeah, I also think another aspect of it is when you come through that second transition, you end up having to deal with a very quick and pinchy rotation of the car. So people that really know how their car feels comfortable and where it sits when you come through a very versatile transition like that, you're rotating the car a lot. It's almost a complete U-turn of a rotation that you're doing. So the drivers that know exactly when the car is going to be stable can really light up those rear tires. They're going to be the ones that adapt very quickly. And so it looked like he's still feeling out a little bit of what that is, but it almost looked like he learned something just on that run alone. So very excited to see what he's going to put together by run by run as we go throughout the day.
Savio Silva passing the judges stand, going to the grid to start his first qualifying run. Savio Silva, along with a few other drivers, part of the Drift HQ crew, big family, lots of people, great food from that camp. So really glad to see them out here.
Yeah, I especially really like to see Drift HQ out here because that means that, these guys that have been really prominent in the Florida drifting scene are now taking a step towards putting themselves on the national map, and they've already done such a great job doing so by taking part in things like Drift Week and getting involved with Adam LZ, doing a lot of stuff to really just bring their name up in a very short amount of time. But now they're going to be taking it onto a national stage as far as the competition goes. And a lot of these drivers that are here, we know they've gotten plenty of seat time. I definitely agree that now is the time to contend for that license because they're either going to get it or learn a whole lot and develop as drivers in the competitive space, and it's definitely that time for them.
Yeah, I agree. I'm glad to see that they're pushing forward with that. A score of 64 for Eric Noguera and the red C6 Corvette. So we're on the other side of the track. This is a track that you're pretty familiar with, Alec. As far as being a little bit closer to the runway, it still looks like the concrete pad that we see pretty much everywhere else on Sebring. So is there a difference between grip going from asphalt to concrete here?
Yeah, I'd say definitely you're going to feel a huge loss in grip, and it's really interesting because the pavement, it changes where you're actually in this decel zone. So almost the amount of braking that you can do and decelling that you can do halfway through the corner is greater than in the second half. So you definitely want to prioritize setting yourself up early in this transition because if you don't accomplish it by the time you hit the apex of that next corner, then there's very little that you can do, and you're almost at that point where it's time to get back on the gas. So you want to know exactly what to do. There's a rhythm to this course. You definitely don't want to, you want to get it down and then just be repetitive and be consistent because trying to figure out and make decisions on the fly is just not so easily accommodated on this layout.
Yeah, it's definitely pretty interesting as far as the transition and its placement relative to the rest of the course. Original pavement, all the concrete, was probably originally laid when this was like a U.S. Army base, like an Air Force base way back in World War II. So this is kind of cool to be on a historic spot like here.
Yeah, I mean, one of the opportunities for drivers to drive here becomes a little bit of a sentimental opportunity because the amount of historic tracks, or amount of historic races, the amount of historic cars, drivers that have all been present on this same exact tarmac, it goes above and beyond anything that I can list. And even staying at the hotels around the area, it's just all got this homage to the history of this track. So very happy to see it, and I'm hoping these drivers are absolutely taking in that this is also just a very meaningful opportunity for that.
Yeah, so unfortunately for Douglas Santana was coming out for his first qualifying run and just totally botched the entry. Not too sure if it popped out of gear, had some type of technical issue. It sounds like there's a misfire, but that could just be actually the regular lope.
All right, so unfortunate to see there, but he's been an amazing driver all weekend, and we even saw him out here in practice, and he goes very hard in practice. What I really like to see is that once he thinks he's figured out the course, he always likes to go back out and then just figure out, okay, now just how much can I send it? Where can I play? What's the limit of this corner? And I think that's a very important part of knowing the track is not just practicing it for consistency, but then just practicing what the limits are of the car and track overall, because you never know what you're going to need to go do when you're up against your competitor. All right, and once again, only 3 licenses on the line here. Top 3 competitors in the points championship. Not how they do today, but top 3 in the overall championship are going to be who get their Pro 2 licenses. So obviously tensions are very high here. We know that Brandon McDowell has a strong lead, but with so much that can happen in a single competition, every single driver is making every single run matter, including those qualifying runs because they get points in qualifying as well. Very cinematic. I love looking out of this track and being able to just see that there's just like, you got an airplane in the background, We might even see some cars drifting with a helicopter in the background. We saw one fly really low to the ground earlier, so maybe an opportunity for some really great photography here today.
Excellent backdrop, including a little bit of storms coming our way, so we want to make sure that we get all these drivers out for at least one dry qualifying run. Ryan Acevedo just turning 20 and just making his way around the first qualifying run. Navigating through that diesel zone a little bit nicer than we've seen in previous drivers and previous runs, even in practice. Ryan Acevedo in the ISR 350Z getting through that last turn pretty nicely too. Solid run from Ryan Acevedo, just turned 20. Again, one of our younger drivers, but putting down a pretty solid run. A little bit off this second outside zone, but can't complain otherwise than that.
Yeah, he's at a ripe age. He's got plenty to learn, and I even think today he's still piecing together some things of the track. These drivers had some practice, but if you weren't here for any other prior U.S. Drift Circuit or Holy Shift events, then this is a brand new layout to you, just being shown to you today. And we talked a little bit about that yesterday because other prior rounds were on the same layout we were on yesterday, but this hasn't been used for U.S. Drift Circuit ProAM Series just yet. So it's going to be really exciting to see what he can make of this. And overall, a very quick car, very nimble. So when he's hitting all of his zones, he's going to be someone difficult to keep up with.
Let's see what the score was. For obviously Douglas Santana, that was a 0 for not completing the course. In case you're tracking at home. Waiting for the total from our judges now.
With Douglas Santana getting a 0, that means he's guaranteed to be one of the drivers who's going to have one of those positions to do a knockout run. So he's going to have one more opportunity to come out here, but he's going to need to definitely put down a score. It's much nicer to be in a knockout position if you at least just have a really low score, because at least you're in the game and just have an opportunity to move up.
We have a 59 for Ryan Acevedo.
All right, so 59 definitely being symptomatic of some of the things I think he could definitely work on. We want to see a lot of smoothness, a lot of using every single part of the track, and definitely the car needs to just look like it's floating on a track around the approved driving line for the competition.
So there's definitely some room for improvement on Ryan Acevedo's on his run. He was a little shallow on outside 1, outside 2, and kind of midline through the rest of the course. So the judges want to see full commitment through these zones. That's a little bit hard for drivers to do because you're just kind of swinging the backside of your car that you can't see. So you just kind of have to trust you know where you are in the course.
Yeah, and I think that what we just saw, too, it's not any means by decision, in my opinion. It seems like it's just about getting that first part of the track right, because if you can hit that first transition and throw yourself all the way wide, that takes you through 2 of the judge zones within that single curve of a corner. So definitely want to make sure that you're exercising.
So out on track right now, we have Savio Silva making his entry with this LS Power Drift HQ S14. Nice throttle commitment through the first outer zone. Feathering the throttle to the touch and go. Now as he navigates through the tighter portions of the track before the finish, applying that throttle and really committing and throwing up a ton of smoke and angle. Savio Silva for his first qualifying run. Not too bad from this perspective.
Yeah, not bad at all, and we're definitely seeing a completely different Savio today than we saw yesterday, based on the fact that Savio was clearly dealing with some mechanical issues yesterday, and in practice he's just looked very comfortable. I do think I've seen a couple runs in practice that looked a little bit cleaner and tidier than that run, but overall he should be very happy about that because he looks comfortable, and it looks like the things he'd have to work on are just small little adjustments, and it's nice when you can just zone in the things you have to work on to just a handful of things rather than have a whole note and list of things that you have to work on within a short amount of time, because this qualifying competition is right around the corner. You really need to limit what the things are that you need to critique, so that way you can just be consistent.
So we do have the drone out here able to assist the judges in confirming some of what they saw or maybe what they didn't see on track. The drone is kind of the kind of the proof in the pudding, I guess. I don't know what else to say about it, but it's really helped the judges to be able to definitively clearly see and tell the judges, inform the judges what they're trying to see on track.
Yeah, the invention of drone technology has really helped this motorsport in particular. I mean, especially with us, we need to be able to see the distance between cars, and if you had cameras that were just along the wall, and beforehand, drift competitions back in 2010, 2012, there were no cameras at all. You had to just decide based on memory. So there's obviously a lot of situations where that's unfair to the drivers. So being able to pick this apart and get a camera up in the sky, it means that you can literally just look down and see everything. So really happy the judges not only have the ability to do that, but just go frame by frame and really analyze these things.
Not just up in the sky, but also able to follow the cars. That's pretty cool too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it captures all the action, and honestly, it just makes for great replays just for the fans. All right, so we are still waiting on a score for Savio Silva. And happy to hear, we got a lot of names that are hard for us to pronounce, and we were just talking about it beforehand, that there is just a lot of Brazilian presence in the pits. It's something that wasn't common 10 years ago, and now we've just seen, even in that country, that just so much presence has appeared within such a short amount of time, and it's become such a huge culture in that country that now there's just this, it was just birthed such amazing drivers. So it is no surprise to see a large amount of them here in the grid today, and every single one of them has absolutely earned the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so great to see. I'm really happy to see all the Brazilian drivers out here, some of them even representing that Brazilian green on the cars. Adam Ginkel will be our next qualifying driver. That nitrous-powered VQ G35. Kind of a loud car, isn't it?
Yeah, it's loud, and it's making lots of clouds. I mean, he's out here, and there's definitely some chassis out here that seem to be making more grip, but he puts out a ton of smoke in that car. It is just a VQ with a nitrous kit. Not much done. I don't believe anything is done to the internals, and it looks like he's clearly making enough power to be competitive. Not last night, but the round before that, we saw him take on second place. Unfortunately, we saw him get knocked out of competition yesterday with double zeros in qualifying. Not the way you want to go, and it did take him from 5th place in points all the way down to, I believe, 14th overall in points. So not what you want to see going into the finals. It may be a really huge gap to close, but honestly, he's out here to have fun, and sometimes that's a better situation to be in, because if he's not within reach of points today, then he can just go out, have fun, get as much experience from today as possible, and it's only going to shape him up better for next season.
So here we go, first run for Adam Ginkel. Good commitment on the entry. Nice job navigating that outside zone. A little bit of a weeble wobble through the transition. Maybe took a little bit too much time, but then maybe missed a gear right there, right in front of the touch and go. Couple mistakes have accumulated here on this run, but still finishing strong with that nitrous-powered G35. Adam Ginkel, everyone.
Yeah, we saw a lot of corrections there, a little bit of sloppiness, and I definitely think that he prioritized the wrong areas in the first part of the track to pick up his momentum. I think in this very first entry, he just got a little bit too much angle, and it meant that he had to shallow up on angle for that transition in order to pick speed back up again, in order to make it to that next outer zone. But ultimately, it looks like there were no mistakes large enough to warrant a 0, and so what he really just needed today is some points, make sure he's in the game, and if he secured that, even if the points are low, it doesn't mean anything bad, because if he gets to go into a shootout and he ends up in bottom 6, he'd come out here and put a banger of a run knowing he's at least secured a spot, and maybe even try to throw himself up there into the top 5 qualifying areas.
Did you guys get a score for Savio? Savio Silva with a score of 70, a 70 for Savio Silva in the green Drift HQ S14.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, that puts him in the top 5 qualifiers, and so that's a really strong number to have. It seems like we're getting some 70s out of this. Still haven't seen anything in the 80s besides Brandon McDowell, but so far I think that's going to be a place he's going to be happy with. If he ends up kind of like in the mid-grid of the bracket, it's a really happy place to be in, because the competition will just get more challenging as you proceed through it. So he's going to be able to just work on those things he needs to work on, put his head down, and get some results that he's happy with.
So a 59 for Adam Ginkel on his first qualifying run. Couple of bobbles here on the transition, and a couple misshifts right in front of the touch and go. Big deductions in the eyes of the judges, but he at least got some points up there. No zeros for Adam Ginkel today.
Yeah, he needed points and skin in the game. He was able to accomplish that. And, I think what all these drivers really need to be looking at on this course is where you have opportunities to take what kind of sacrifices, because it's not the same in every part of the track. We pretty much know now that if you come into that first part of the corner, the first section in that entry with too much angle, there isn't any way to make up for it that's going to not look even worse than what you were hoping for. But if you decide to not be too greedy on that entry, get a little bit shallower, exercise with some medium angle and some restraint, keep your speed up, and it's going to look a lot nicer because you have a touch and go and an outer zone coming up next. It's better that those two zones look good rather than making sure that your entry is as much angle as possible. So I hope these drivers are going to pick and choose their battles, because it comes down to what's going to happen when we add points to pen and paper. And so keeping that in their head, it's going to take them a long way.
Next car on for his first qualifying run is Marcelo Zwapa. Solid throttle commitment, but just totally offline and unfortunately spinning it out. Seemed like he didn't get much practice earlier today, possibly some car issues keeping him from going onto the grid. What fell off? That was his third lap on the track, so he had a really great throttle commitment for the first run. Looks like we're getting some serious breezes over here. Looking over at the windsock at the runway, and we're getting it pretty stiff windsock right now.
Yeah, we just got an immense breeze coming through, so if it looks like we're sitting in a hurricane, that is what we're going through. We have some tents that are going flying in the pits.
Please secure your tents. Please secure your tents. We have two tents flying off on even one over the fence there in the back. Please secure your tents. We are getting a major gust.
If anyone needs help tying anything down, just make sure everything's secure. We're going to have some strong winds throughout the day, kind of off and on today, so definitely just want to make sure nothing's flying away. We do see that white tent going on back there. Talking about Marcelo Zappa only having a few runs to get out there today and practice. Not a whole lot of practice. It'd be 3 runs to go out there and send it like he did. Obviously mistakes were made, but it seems like he's got kind of understanding what the gist of his is going to be. So
let it go back. Give it a second. There.
Oh, that's all that's moving in on us. Oh, sick.
And then get ready for it.
Oh, awesome.
That's like nasty.
Right on top of us. Yeah, so taking a look at their radar today, it looks like we're going to have some pretty challenging weather conditions moving in on us, and it looks like it's going to get pretty nasty within a couple hours, but you know Florida weather, even then it's unpredictable. Next qualifier.
Kenneth Gehringer on track right now. Fortunately for us, the smoke is able to fly through pretty quick, but unfortunately for Kenneth, being able to spin out there right before the last outer zone. So that will be a 0 for Kenneth Gehringer. Also a 0 for Marcelo on the previous run, but you know that was his only third run on the whole entire track. So.
It was 100 in my heart. In my heart, it was 100.
Yeah, looking over at this windsock, it looks like it's about 15 knots plus. So that's about almost 17 or 18 miles per hour wind. And we're getting probably gusts of over 30, so.
Yeah, it looks like these conditions are going to be really tough for people that are looking to enjoy the event today. But yesterday we got to see a bunch of fans just stay put. We saw people just getting wet in the name of drifting. So hopefully we're going to see people stick around today. And these changing in track conditions could be really rough too, because we know this is a very fast entry. If it's wet, the drivers are not going to like this. Getting word from our drone pilot. We're going to go ahead and just ace the drift now. The wind speeds are just a little bit too high to be flying.
Let me show you the radar.
All right, so while we figure out track conditions, why don't we go ahead and we're going to go ahead and we'll be right back.
Link is the engine management solution for champions the world over.
All right, so we're actually going to be sending some cars.
We know what it takes to win. Pushing boundaries, performing under pressure, and having the best people on your team. Our tech support our performance specialists, available 24 hours and ready to talk one-on-one about your winning formula. Link ECU, the performance, reliability, and power to get to the podium.
So we got Steven Tassinero coming out from the burnout box. We're going to try to get as many qualifying runs going as possible. It's still very windy, so we won't have a drone shot.
Yeah, the weather's moving in really quickly, so we really need to try and get through as much qualifying as possible. Yesterday, we weren't even able to get through qualifying until weather conditions got a little bit better for us. So to at least get through qualifying is going to be a huge thing to celebrate today, given how yesterday had to go. All right, so we are just about to send our next qualifier.
Looks like we will actually have some drone footage. Might not be able to follow the car, but we have a brave pilot that's going out there with his drone to get some footage of these cars coming out on track. So Steven Tassinero will be our next qualifier.
Here we go. Steven is S14. A lot of fun watching him drive. That car looks like it is just an absolute handful of fun. Doing a good job making his way through the entry. He's filling out that outer zone. We like to see him using all the track, and he's doing a good job of it right here. Only minor corrections, and we're looking to see him transition, rotate that car comfortably while getting lots of throttle down, and he's able to do that very smoothly as he makes his way across the finish line and I think that is going to be a qualifying run he's going to be very happy with.
Excellent, excellent run, filling in all the outer zones, getting on the touch and go. Looked like he had a quick hiccup, but that was just him shifting down and setting himself up well for that touch and go.
Yeah, we're going to obviously see some minor corrections by a lot of the drivers since it's such a fast entry and then it slows down. A lot of drivers are going to need to downshift as they come in at some point. So, him being very opportunistic about when the right time is to do that while also staying on line and keeping a decent amount of angle and momentum is what really needs to just be celebrated by that run.
So we are giving a little bit of a break from the wind. It still is pretty gusty, but I'm looking over at the windsock and it's kind of going a little bit more limp towards the end. And that's a good sign.
Yeah, we'd like to try and see this thing go around us. I mean, we see our radar and we know how things can be in Florida, is that even when you see some sort of weather condition, things can change in a moment's notice. Last round that we were here, not yesterday, but round 2, about a month ago, we saw a cloud coming right towards us and went all the way around us, and then one appeared above us out of nowhere. So we went from wet to dry 2 times throughout the day.
Florida doing Florida things.
Oh yeah, Florida. If you're from another state moving here to Florida, welcome, but you're in for a treat.
81 for Steven Tassinero, 81 for his first qualifying run. That puts him right behind Brandon McDowell in second place for qualifying so far.
That is awesome. I'm so happy to see another driver step into the 80s. At an 81, he has every reason to be so proud of himself. That is a great place to be sitting when it comes time to go into competition. All right, our next driver up to the plate is going to be Ben Zislin. Very happy to see him up here, another young driver. I believe he's also 14 years old, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, 14 years old from Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And that VQ 350Z had some issues in the rain yesterday. Let's see what he can do here on this new track for round 4.
Yeah, 2 14-year-olds. Happy to see. I'd love to see a 14-year-old versus 14-year-old battle out here today. That'd be pretty cool. Just for the history of drifting out here in South Florida. Maybe if it goes to one more time and we couldn't decide a winner, we would just go ahead and take a look at their grade point average. Get academics involved to make this one.
Ooh, super shallow on entry. Needs to get a little bit further out to fill in that outer zone. Grabbing some e-brake to push himself out towards that touch and go, but unfortunately missing it with a much more shallow line than what the judges are trying to see. Filling in that last outer zone quite nicely and powering on through the finish. Not the greatest run, but still being able to put it together in some spots, so that's at least a full score for Ben.
Yeah, happy to see him complete the run and get a score down, but we definitely saw a lot of shallow driving, and this course, it's very demanding, but it can definitely be fulfilled by both drivers with and without a lot of power, and so for him, the name of the game is going to be the amount of speed he has on his run-up. He's going to want to get as fast of an entry out of this as possible, even if that means just taking a couple steps back at the start and being able to start a little further back if that could be accommodated, because if you carry enough momentum, you can huck your car at least all the way halfway through this track, and then we know he at least has enough power to get through the second half, so love to see him as just experiment with speed on this one.
Got a 44-44 for Ben Zislin. Unfortunately, it was not sizzling as much as he should. Was kind of probably hoping out, but still he has an opportunity in the top 6 knockout to redeem himself.
Yeah, that was a low score. He's definitely in the game, but he's definitely going to want to clean up the way that he's entering into the corner because, with the nature of this being a fast entry in competition, it can be pretty dangerous if both cars aren't coming in at the same exact speed. A lot of these cars are really gripped up. In order to complete the first half of the track, they have to keep a certain amount of speed going, and it looks like his car's happy staying sideways at lower speeds, but in order for him to fill those zones, he's really going to need to pick it up a notch going into it. All right, we're getting another strong gust of wind up here.
This is secure, right?
just a moment, let the wind die down. And, you know, obviously this isn't for the car's safety. The cars can go ahead and drive in winds like this, but we want to make sure that we're using the drone as part of our determination for these qualifying runs. We can't get the drone up. That's just one less perspective for us to be able to get a score from the judges. So, you know, even if we can't follow the cars or keep up with the cars with the wind, the drone at least needs to be able to stay put. We only have 3 drivers left that need to do their qualifying runs before we'll be going on to our bottom 6 knockouts. So once again, that's only 3 drivers left to do their first qualifying pass, and then from there, we're going to look at the bottom 6 lowest qualifiers. That includes people that would have zeros, and they're going to have to go put down some sort of score. People that at least were able to put a score down are going to be looking for a higher score to secure themselves further up on the bracket, and those that had no score at all are just looking to get a rundown, play it safe, get a score so they can make sure that they have some skin in the game. All our track staff out there doing the best they can to make this happen. A lot of them volunteers just out here for the sake of drifting, doing the best they can to help put on an event that allows these drivers to come out here and compete for their chance to have an FD license. These guys are the ones that make it happen, so if you're here at the track, definitely on your way out today, if you see anyone in a staff shirt, make sure you let them know that you're grateful, say thank you, because these guys are doing it all for you.
All right, looks like we're going to go ahead and move forward with our next qualifier, Zendara Kennedy, stunt woman from Canada and the Camo 350Z. Got up to the top 4 yesterday and put some points up the board, so that's a good sign.
Yeah, she's getting a lot of good experience here. We learned a little bit more about her over the night, and we know that she's from Canada. She's a stunt woman. She's got some experience. She's known from the judges that she's badass. No, but she's got some experience being a stunt driver, and that's very handy. I mean, this is a motorsport that is all about car control. So your ability to do it in any sort of discipline, aside from just sliding a car around corners, just means that you're going to know how to build familiarity. So with her getting behind the seat of a drift car to compete for an FD Pro 2 license, it's definitely going to be a test for her to kind of grab a lot of what she's learned from those experiences and apply them to a competitive discipline.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how she does in this next qualifying run. LS powered 350Z coming down the entry right now. Getting on throttle, a little shallow through the first outer zone, but throwing in the second outer zone quite nicely right in front of the judges. Swinging it out wide, but a little bit too wide on that touch and go. Going at least a couple tires off there. You can see the white smoke coming out. The white powder getting kicked up from that mistake there right in front of the touch and go. Was looking great through the second outer zone, but then right before the touch and go just went way off course.
Yeah, I think what happened there is that, it's a really common misconception when you get into cars that are a little bit more competitive and a little bit more grippy, that if it looks like you're about to go off, to come off the throttle and to try and scrub speed that way. But on a slicker surface like this, it just meant that you're going to float off track. It is actually kind of just it's more of a paradox, because what you really need to do in that moment, I think, is just trust the car more, rotate the car more, stay on the throttle, because as long as the back of the car is facing the way you don't want to go, she might have been able to throttle and keep herself on track.
So unfortunately, that's going to be a 0 for Zendara. We'll have an opportunity to correct that first qualifying run with the bottom 6 qualifiers.
Yeah, so lots of opportunities still for anyone who's worried about qualifying on the bottom. Excited to see the shootout. A lot of different things are going to be going through the heads of different drivers that are there for different reasons. People with a 0 have to have a completely different mentality than people coming in there with just a low score. So half of the grid's going to have a reason to hang it all out. The other half is going to be just really nervous to try and get a score on.
All right, our next qualifier is Sergio Hanazano. He was our third place finisher yesterday, and the LS-powered IS300 put on a pretty good show for us yesterday. I really hope that puts out a solid first qualifying run here, so he doesn't have to go into the bottom 6 knockout. So let's see what he can do.
Yeah, we see some decent drivers from him. He's also one of the ones that was going out with Santana in practice, just absolutely letting everything hang out. And that's the best way, as I was talking about earlier, for practice. Once you kind of know your way around the course, just go out there, have fun with it, and really experiment, because being able to add some extra stuff in there for style is always going to look good to the judges outside of just doing a textbook run. Once again, we're coming down to our last few qualifiers here. Looks like right now, if we're lucky, knock on wood, hopefully we're able to get through everybody. I'm very thankful to Sebring International Raceway. They've been more than nice accommodating.
I forgot to scrub my fronts.
All right, just making sure his tires are nice and extra warm for this. He's now pulling up to the line, ready to see what he can put down for his first qualifying run. We're seeing him speed up to the first corner. Still lots of meat on the bone in qualifying. Let's see what he can put down.
Solid entry by Sergio, but in the wrong gear. Definitely relying a little bit too much on that rev limiter. Then slowly transitioning into the second outer zone, but getting the car in a pretty nice spot right at the touch and go. Now as he swings out for the last outer zone, starting to apply that throttle and just barely drifting across the finish line. Not the greatest run, but still putting it in the right places.
Yeah, not sure what his gearing is, but we heard him up there on the rev limiter coming in the first corner. I'm not sure if he would be able to use a higher gear, maybe get enough tire speed to really commit to that and find an opportunity to downshift later into the run. It seems like that would help him if it is possible, but overall, we'd just like to see a lot more commitment and a lot more throttling out. A lot of drivers out here are putting up big clouds, lots of smoke, and coming around that second half of the track, it looked like he had a lot more opportunity to just really lay it on the gas. So room for improvement, but he finished the run. So he's going to get a score most likely. We'll have to see where that puts him. If it's out of the bottom 6, he's locked in. If it's in the bottom 6, he'll have another chance to come back out here and finish a little bit higher.
We got a 61-61 for Sergio Hanazano for his first qualifying run. That should be enough to get him safely out of the bottom 6, but just barely maybe.
Yeah, it's definitely right there on the threshold, and with still a couple qualifiers left to go, it's going to depend on what their scores are as well to determine whether or not he's going to have an opportunity, or if there's other 2 qualifiers score any lower, then we're going to have to see him just be settled with that score and just get ready for what competition's going to have in store for him.
All right, looks like we have one last qualifier, Lewis Lons, our winner from last night in the red C6 Corvette. So even though that he's the last qualifier, this is an order built by points. So this is his first event with USDrift Circuit, and he won.
Yeah, he did a great job yesterday driving. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see a full battle yesterday, as we saw an issue from Jaden. He unfortunately stalled out in the line, and then he was very. He got a great opportunity to be able to take first place. I would have loved to see that battle play out, but if he's got his sights set on first place again, we're definitely going to get to see that, because it seems like it's with it. He had a good pace, good rhythm to his driving yesterday, and carrying it in today. If he's been able to keep the same wits about him, hopefully we'll see the same performance.
All right, so let's see Lewis Lance for his first qualifying run. Red C6 Corvette, Alice Power, of course. A little off Check, 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 check. Check, check. All right.
Test, test, test.
So we're going to move on to the bottom 6. We're going to have the lowest 6 qualifiers go out for their second qualifying run. Douglas Santana and the blue E46 BMW will be our first qualifier. He's also the first to 0 on his first qualifying run. So now you have an opportunity to redeem himself and get himself in that bracket.
Yeah, as we were talking about before, the mentality for these drivers coming into the Doug has been making a lot of this track. He's did a lot of practice. Unfortunately, a little bit of a goof up on his entry. We definitely know that's not the nature of how he knows how to drive this track. So we'd love to see him put his head down, not do anything wild, not try to show off too much. Just get a score. Just don't make any mistakes. Just keep the game. Don't want to waste any time right now. We just came out here for a reason. Let's put down a score.
So here we go, Douglas Santana, blue E46 BMW, nice initiation using that LS power to get himself into that first outer zone. Now he comes to you can see him filling the second outer zone pretty nicely. Touch and go looks pretty good, and then now transitioning to the last outer zone, we see Douglas Santana just modulating that throttle to the finish. Full pull for Douglas Santana and redeeming himself from that first 0.
There we go. I love to see it. Doug definitely understood what the mission was in the moment. He answered the call. He put down a good score. I think we're going to be excited to see where that's going to place him in the competition. And I like to see a lot of diversity of different techniques right there. We saw a little bit of a clutch kick, fast entry, really quick e-brake pull, really quick foot drop. Being able to diversify what techniques you know behind the wheel and where to apply them to help you get the job done. It's really the difference between memorizing a track and making drifting really a second nature extension of your body. This wind is picking up once again. The weather is giving us a little bit of mercy, but not that much. It looks like it's still making its way over to us, but we got to get these 6-speed drivers through. We want to see what kind of score, and if we can just get our final scores and then assess the weather situation after that, we'll be looking good. But happy to see it's still early in the afternoon. We made pretty good progress so far. And I think a lot of these drivers right now, I think that a lot of the scores are lining up for just kind of like their overall driving ability so far.
We got a 74 at Douglas Santana's second qualifying run, so that puts him actually in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, 74 is awesome right now. I think that, the best of the best are in the 80s. The guys that are just below that as far as... Sorry about that interruption there. We are got some fatalities with papers. If we lose everything, we're just gonna have to call it how we see it, folks. We're doing our best. These are all our notes, so we can tell you our backgrounds and things on the drivers. So. All right, so Adam Ginkel's going to be pulling up to the line. He's going to be the next to go ahead and do his redemption run. Luckily, this time he has a score in his first qualifying run, but it was in the bottom 6. So right now, if I'm him, I'm thinking, you know what? Go all out. You don't have to worry about it. You have a score. Get the highest score you possibly can. So I think right now, hopefully, I know he loves to do that. I love it. I know he knows every excuse to do that. Even on the zeros, unfortunately, that he got in qualifying, he was full sending it. So if I know anything about him, he's about to try and do whatever he can to secure the highest number he can get. So as we wait for Adam Ginkle to get ready to do his run, for the judges to be ready. Adam Ginkle's always been a strong driver down here in South Florida. Started from the very bottom of the grassroots with an S13. Had himself, doing all the rituals that we talked about back in the day, just jumping in tire bins, getting used tires, mounting them to a car, learning mechanics along the way. Also started at a pretty young age. He started while he was still in high school, so lots of longevity underneath his belt. Driven at a bunch of different courses. He's really loved the idea of traveling to different tracks and getting out there to other states where there's elevation changes and other opportunities to test his driving ability. So Adam going ahead and heating up his tires. So name of the game for him, like we were just talking about earlier, is just have fun on this run. Don't overthink it. You already have a score, so just get out there, have fun, throw it all out. If you spin out trying to hang 10, don't worry about it. But if you didn't spin out, then you have an awesome qualifying run. And we know he's capable of it. We got to see him about a month ago. Just absolutely make butter out of that other course. So. Here he goes. It's time for him to run up to the first corner. They're going to send him any moment now. And here he goes. He is off the starting line.
All right, so Adam Ginkle coming out for his second qualifying run, using to get into that first outer zone. Now it's screaming past us into the second outer zone. A little off throttle to let the car transition around. Now that it's snapped over, filling in the the last outer zone quite nicely, finishing off strong. So Adam Ginkle for his second qualifying run looked pretty good.
Yeah, that was much better than what we saw, and that's definitely the Adam Ginkle I know. That was what we were looking at about a month ago in round 2 all day long, and so he's definitely setting himself up. He put the nerves aside, did what he had to do, and that was a great run. I think he's going to be much happier with that score, and that should place him much higher up in the bracket. So the judge is currently compiling a score for that one.
76 for his second qualifying run. Adam Ginkle with a 76. That's a pretty good redemption story right there.
Yeah, that is great. Like, mid to high 76s, you're getting a lot closer. And remember, we only have 2 people that were even able to tap into the 80s. So he's sitting up there with some of our top qualifiers now. I know that's going to make him feel good. I know after yesterday he's probably looking for some renewed confidence. That should be the confidence boost he needs. Now, if he can just remember how that felt to do that run, carry that into competition, he just needs to repeat that. Copy, paste, and do that for the rest of the day. He's going to be looking good. Constantly losing just about everything made out of paper over here in the judges booth. Definitely a good opportunity for us to try and make USDC paperless. Thank you so much. Here's these. All right, so we are lining up our next driver. All right, this looks like this is going to be Marcelo Zalpa coming out here for his second qualifying run. He's going to have an opportunity to knock out a great qualifying score. Very minimal practice, but he's doing a good job right now connecting his outside zone. He's already past the area where he messed up beforehand. It's only about his 4th or 5th run, and oh no! Unfortunately, a spin right there into that next transition. I know that's not a good feeling, but unfortunately, you know, if it has to happen, at least this time, it's not for a lack of practice or anything. I mean, it is for a lack of practice. It's not because of any driver error. He really is just now learning this course, so, you know, unfortunately, it's not something you want to see happen, but it's expected with that little experience on the track.
No lack of effort, just unfortunately a lack of luck.
Yeah, absolutely. No one likes that situation where you have to miss out on pretty much all of practice, and I believe this time it was because of a belt that had come off.
Here, let me trade you.
We do see a little bit of rain behind us. Some of these clouds we were worried about causing us a lot of trouble have already made their way around us. We're kind of in this small patch of sunlight that's just that's the only hole left in these dark clouds surrounding the track.
We're in the eye of the storm.
Yeah, it's definitely feels like we're being given just a little bit of leeway by the weather, but it looks like it's just about ready for as soon as qualifying ends to come down on us. So we do have to take a brief pause. We will do our best to update the calendar as it needs to be restated on schedule. We had a schedule posted on the USDrift Circuit Instagram page, but we will do our best on social media to keep anyone who's not here watching virtually updated, as well as the drivers here at the track. So just keep an eye on the social media pages, take a look at the Instagram stories, because that's going to be where all our new information is going to be. And you're definitely not going to want to miss competition. It is going to happen today, rain or shine. The only thing we can't work with is lightning. So hopefully all of you will come back to see who the champion is going to be out of this last round of USDrift Circuit Pro.
So we got Kenneth Geringer coming out to us with his SR-powered S13 for his second qualifying run. A little bit of a shallow entry, but letting it swing out a little bit further. Now going slightly offline for the outer zone, and a super shallow line going towards the second, or the touch and go rather. Feathering the throttle to the finish. Things look pretty tidy through there, but unfortunately that entry was just super shallow, and then really shallow as he pretty much beelined it towards the touch and go.
Yeah, lots of mistakes on that one. We know he's working with an SR power plant, which is making a good amount of power, but it definitely seems like all he really needs in this situation is just more seat time, a lot more familiarity behind the chassis. Looks like all he needs to do, because when he's in unison with the car, it seems like he's very comfortable, he knows what to do, and there just seems like there's certain moments where he's kind of anticipating and waiting to see what the car's what the car's reaction is going to be. And so to see him build some more familiarity would be great. We know that right now he's not up there in the top of the point standing for the championship, so I really hope that he comes back next season, because between this season and next season, I believe there's a lot of room for growth, and I think that he's a really talented driver. He can definitely fill that gap within a year.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Kenneth grow within the sport, and you know, he's in the right spot. He's at the right spot right now, is just trying to learn out here at these events. You really don't know until you try, so I'm glad to see that Kenneth is out here giving it its best. So we have confirmation from the judges that it will be a 0 for Kenneth. Unfortunately, that's just because the entry he was not initiated by the last entry cone. So
yeah, it's really unfortunate. Those entry cones are there, counted down by a 3, 2, 1 cone standing out there, and so the drivers see them as a reference point. They definitely know how fast to expect them coming up. So you know, unsure for the reason. Maybe he was just focused on the latter part of the track and let it slip his mind. But you know, that is how the rules work. You need to be sideways by that last initiation cone. That's basically seen as you just being straightened out in the middle of the course if you aren't drifting by that last cone.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's just not going to work for putting the score up. So that will be a 0 for Kenneth Geringer. So Ben Zislin ready for his second qualifying run.
Yeah, we saw him come through in his earlier qualifying run. He didn't seem to be carrying quite enough speed with him in that lower power plant. We want to see him commit to a much higher momentum entry. He's going to want to carry the weight of the car through this transition, because other people that might make mistakes and have more power plant, that have the option to throttle out through that transition, which we've seen throughout the day, people being able to kind of throttle out of mistakes. It's not really an option for this first part of the track for him. He's going to have no choice but for the weight of the car to be his friend. This title sponsor being Mid Pond Drift Track. Very happy to see them out here. Pond Drift Park, sorry. Looks like he just finished heating up his tires. He's pulling up to the line now, and they're going to be setting him any minute now. And looks like he is strapped and ready to go, leaving the starting line. Let's see what he's going to be able to put down this run.
So Ben sizzling white 240SX, just a stock VQ with an angle kit. Solid job on the entry. Looking a lot more smooth than his previous run. This is where he messed up last time, but oh, come on. He got 2 tires off right at the last moment. Looked like he was just about to catch it, but I think unfortunately he just got that rear axle across the white line. And we marked the course with chalk, so it's pretty obvious when they go offline. So it's just really unfortunate to see Ben a lot more smooth on his entry, a lot more confident, and just unfortunately just not be able to put the power down in the right moment.
Yeah, I mean, we heard of the engine struggling. It was just trying to come in, and we knew that he at least came in with the amount of speed that he needed to, but then he came a little bit shallow. He should have, anything you need to do to e-brick extend, use up all the track, that creates more surface area for you to scrub that speed. So by him, unfortunately, coming in shallow rather than making the sacrifice of speed or doing what he needed to do to just stay to the outskirts of the track, meant that when he got to the edge, there was just nowhere to go.
So he did get a score on his first run, but unfortunately his second run was a 0 for going off course. So he's still in the bracket. That's good. That's great. He's going to have some tandem experience later today, but unfortunately just not able to improve his first score.
Yeah, and I think between those 2 runs, he had different approaches to each run. I think that he was able to use both of them as learning opportunities. So granted, he's 100% in the game. Now I think he really needs to just go take a look at videos if they're available of what he's been doing today, because he made some adjustments. I think that even though he's lower power, he's completely competent enough to be able to get this car around the track perfectly.
So Zandara Kennedy will be our last second run qualifier.
All right, so this is our last run of our knockout qualifiers. We've had 6 drivers that had the opportunity to get a better score, and they're leaving the line right now. This is Zandara
Kennedy from Canada entering in for her second qualifying run, getting on the throttle pretty nicely, filling in that first outer zone, grabbing the e-brake right in front of the judges here for the second outer zone, navigating to the touch and go in a nice way as well. Then as she fills in that last outer zone, Zandara finishing off strong for her second qualifying run.
So very good. We got to see her originally put down a score, I believe, and now we got to see her go ahead and see if she can put down a higher score. I'm not sure where that's going to go in comparison to her first qualifying run. I did see her cut a little bit more than I would have liked to, but ultimately she seems like she's getting comfortable even throughout the weekend. We've seen her in the beginning of yesterday making some mistakes in different conditions. Now at least it's dry for the moment, so she's getting some consistent track conditions to improve herself, and she's being very opportunistic about applying those changes run after run.
So she did get a 0 on her first qualifying run. So now that she has some points, let's see where it will put her in the bracket.
Oh yeah, so there we go. So yeah, 0, all she needed to do is put down points. So very happy to see her secure her spot.
Got a 65 for Zandara Kennedy on her second qualifying run, and that completes qualifying. So we're done with qualifying. We're going to quickly meet with the drivers and then head back out for the tandem competition and try to get as much in as we can before the weather starts really affecting us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. If you decided to tune in for qualifying, we're going to get everything situated, figure out what that bracket's going to look like, and remember, this is the championship. So when you join us again, we're going to be going from our bracket all the way down to the finals, and we're going to leave here knowing exactly who our top 3 drivers are that are getting their Pro 2 licenses. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Link is the engine management solution for champions the world over. We know what it takes to win. Pushing boundaries, performing under pressure, and having the best people on your team. Our tech support are performance specialists, available 24 hours and ready to talk one-on-one about your winning formula. Link ECU, the performance, reliability, and power to get to the podium.
Guys, Team Taxi Garage here. Use code USDC during the live stream for 10% off store-wide.